Hello and welcome to the Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates. So today we continue on with the topic that we've been talking about for a while. We're just getting more and more specific. Now the idea is we're talking about this thing called Create Insight. So if we look at chapter 4 of the book Create Crucial Insight by Thomas Buchholz, we see this thing called Use Create Insight Technique, Create Crucial Insight, Use Direct Outcomes Checklists. Now he said too often people miss the opportunity to what? To create useful concepts or options that might otherwise be overlooked, cross-check plans or metrics for thoroughness or consistency, estimate or articulate value endeavors generate, help people utilize common basis for communicating and cooperating, organize the content of communications, help perform many other business-like activities. See, this is the thing, is like, what do you mean business-like activities? And the concept that I'm trying to understand, really, what I'm thinking about, what I'm really working on in my head. So this thing that says Create Insight Technique, I think that's talking about this thing here, figure 8. Now, there's always this assumption at the beginning, this thing called an endeavor. And if we look at the instructions, it says people could do the following. Describe an endeavor of interest to people. So that's really been my focus for the last couple of videos, where I'm just like, what is an endeavor? Now, if we go back even, if we want to just think about this idea, create useful concepts, that could be an endeavor. So this is the idea, like how does a conversation begin around creating useful concepts? Because this is also talking about, like, what is an endeavor? All right, so I asked a couple people, I talked to some of my students, and I said, hey, what is an endeavor? Like, how do you start a conversation when you want to create something useful, when you want to do something, when you want to start something? And one guy, he quoted Henry Ford. He said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So now this is about this idea of, like, recognizing a need, right? So it's not always that people recognize the need. And it's important to be able to understand a deeper need. Also, Steve Jobs said think different. So think about how things work. Think about how a thing works. Think about how it's related to people and other things. All right, so we're talking about complex solutions. We're talking about better solutions. We're talking about simple answers. Like, the beginning of endeavor is often like, where's the pain point? What's the need? Where's the problem? And then trying to think through whys. Like, why did that happen? Why doesn't that happen? All right. So this is probably the most common way, is like, what's the mother of all inventions? Now the second way here, sometimes people do things when they don't know what they want to do. Now I use these direct outcomes in order to do that. So I often go through with managers and I try to figure out, like, what level of management they're at, because often the level of management, if they're managing coordinators and individuals, they're looking for performance type endeavors. If they're an analyst or decision maker, then they're talking about decision-making type endeavors. If they're a functional manager, then they're looking at, like, structuring and innovativeness. And if they're a CEO, then they're looking more at, like, synergies, overall progress. Now from here, so then when you start to think about what the problem is, you can then talk about aspects of an endeavor to analyze, aspects to perform. Also, you have this other place where people are just making goals, and they're talking about how they can create useful concepts. So this is just like barely touching the surface. So, and then I have all these other ways, which, how to create useful content at the C level, at the department level, at the floor level manager. So, putting all these different concepts together, and then I'm also going through these case studies. And I also need a way to categorize these case studies so that I can filter them better. So I'm still going through the same kind of concepts, and I still haven't quite found the answer yet.